Okay, thank you. And
Wait. Okay, so welcome everybody to a new webinar on the My Project use cases. My pleasure now to present a new use case related with computational environmental science use case that is going to be presented by Raffaele Montella. Thank you, Raffaele. Pleasure. So as you know, we will make the presentation, and at the end, if you have questions, please, you can make the question directly, or you can send your questions to the chat. So thank you, Raffaele. I give you the floor.
thank you, Jesus. Thank you, everybody. This is the presentation about the computational environmental science use case at the WIPI 79, the ADMIRE project. The application we deal in the ADMIRE project is a part of a really big application that runs since 2010 here at the University of Napoli Partenope, at the Weather Center of the University of Napoli Partenope. The Weather Center produces operationally weather forecast, ocean forecast, and pollution forecast, and the HPC the HPC activities are supported by the dedicated HPC machine, while the research effort is supported by another HPC machine. This is the big picture of the products generated by the application. Number one is the weather forecast, while the box number two shows the wave, the forecast of waves produced by the wind, maybe one of the most interesting, especially for the ADMIRE project, are the pictures in the box 3 and 4, because picture 3 represents the surface current in the Campania region area, and the resolution is very high. It's about 160 meters. It's one of the highest resolution in the operational models in this kind, while picture 4 represents the output of one of the main actors in the WIPI7 and my WIPI7 use case. This is the output of the Wacom model. The Wacom model was completely developed from scratch here at Unipartenope, and will be intensively used in the ADMIRE project. The dissemination of this data is carried out by the portal, mobile applications, APIs that are completely open and discreetly well documented. And above all data are available as netcdf files on a standard opened up server. And of course, for GIS lovers, we produce the maps directly for GIS output. This is the workflow big picture. The workflow is managed by a workflow engine that was developed here. The name is Dagonstar. We had cooperation with diverse and different institutions developing this workflow engine. Is a workflow engine tailored on this kind of application, but it could for this kind of application we can use also other workflow engines. The data flow is the following. In order to run weather forecast, we need to feed a weather forecast model. We use WRF. That is a community model managed by NOAA and SAP, and we need to feed this model with initial and boundary conditions. We have two choices. We can use European ACMWF data, but unfortunately for forecasting applications, those data are not free, have to be paid, and or otherwise they are the data produced by the GFS model is run by ANSEP and NOAA, and those data are free. And definitely, we use this data. There's no huge difference. Actually, the ECMWF data are better, but for our application are okay, the free one. The output of the weather forecast model is used to used to couple the um, wave models um, and the ocean currents models. Finally, and this is the reason because the box related to Wagon Plus Plus is highlighted, we use the outputs of the current model to drive the pollution, pollution transport and dispersion. Some details. This is the workflow, the weather research and forecast model. I will not be too much focused in this presentation about this because this model is a community model. It's not a produce of my institution. We use this model in this project, but we will not modify this model. This is a some summing up of the input data. The size of the input data is about 25 gigabytes per day, while the output is about 81 gigabytes per day for simulated day. This is another community model, the Wave Watch 3. We use this model coupled with the weather forecast model in order to produce the sea waves. Actually, we are going to couple the transport current generated by sea waves where the waves interacts with the shoreline to better define the currents in Admire project, but this is not operational yet. We start some experiments and are the results are encouraging, but this is not operational yet. This is an idea of the input. The input is basically the output of the weather research and forecast model, while the output is rated on 3 different domains, as in for the weather forecast model. One is on the Mediterranean area, the other one higher resolution using a technique called nesting is on the seas around Italy, and finally the higher resolution is on around the Campania region. This is a common technique used in computational environmental science. Basically, in a perfect world, we should have enough computing power to produce operational forecast at the higher resolution possible, but unfortunately, this is just not possible, and so we set telescopic grids in order to increase locally the resolution. Now we are going closer to the focus of the Admire project and the application in the Admire project, because this is the regional ocean model system. This is another community model. We use this model to produce the three-dimensional field of currents in a selected and restricted area. These forecasts are available only for the um, area of the Campania region. The reason is the resolution is very high. The resolution, while the resolution of the previous models has the order of magnitude of kilometers, here the resolution has an order of magnitude of meters. This is needed because this workflow is used in diverse and different projects, and some projects need a really high resolution in order to produce different outputs. And what is Wacom++? Wacom++ is a Lagrangian model, and it's basically used to model the transport of and diffusion of inerts. That means pollution. The Wacom++ model is usually I say steroidized the version of Wacom, and it's its previous version, but actually it's a completely brand new model. The Wacom model was written in Fortran, was partially parallelized, was not using GPUs, and while the new model has been developed in C++ and has been designed to be hierarchical and heterogeneous. Basically, the computing, the problem is divided among processors, threads, and GPUs. The model, of course, is open source. Part of the model was developed under the my project, and this is the data flow, the Wacom++ model. The inputs are the initial conditions produced by the ROMS model, the model producing C currents. We have to know the emission sources, basically where around the coast are produced the pollutants. Of course, we use data from the local government that periodically updates us about this information. Unfortunately, we have just the location, and we have some information about the behavior, if these sources are spotty or are activated in the case of heavy rain events, or are continuously producing pollutants, but we don't know accidental outdrops of pollutants, for example, because some accidents or whatever, or even illegal emissions, of course. We don't know. We can use this model to find sources that are not collected by the local government, but it's just one of the actual usage of this software. The output is the concentration of pollutant for each cells of the domain, and the output of each run is used for the as input of the next run. This is because some particles remains active, other are sedimented on the seafloor, are no more active, other particles are landed on the shore. The schema of input and the output for Each simulation, the input from the ROM's model is about half terabyte, while for the output we generate about 90 gigabyte per RAM. In the picture, the final output as maps. And you can see the different amount of particles transport and distributed around the Campania region, the Bay of Naples, and the Gulf of Naples and the Bay of Naples. What is the Wacom++ architecture? Basically, we have a outer cycle that is the main Wacom++ component. The main Wacom++ component deals with the particles that are currently managed by the model, the sources that are the emitters of the particles, and the ocean state. Actually, the ocean state can be initialized by the ROM's output or a native file format. Usually we convert the ocean state from different models using an adapter component. Then for each hour to be computed, each source emits an amount of particles, and each particle is moved using a particle inner cycle. While each particle could be processed independently because the particles are not interacting each other, each particle have to be moved sequentially because the Lagrangian equations are time related. And each particle is moved by two components. One is deterministic and is driven by the ocean state, and the other one is randomic. Finally, at the end of each particle's outer cycle, the results are collected, the number of particles are counted for each domain cell, and finally the concentration is computed. This is a simplified parallelization schema. Basically, the model has been designed to be hierarchical and to work on different kind of computing unit. The total amount of particles usually are many thousands up to millions. Are distributed equally distributed among MPI processes. If we use even multi-threading and MPI, open MPI for each process, the particles are distributed for each thread. And if we have active the GPU, the CUDA GPU acceleration, each thread can share part of the GPU. Of course, if we have multiple GPUs on the same computing node, we can use even multiple GPUs for each computing node. In this case, each GPU will receive part of the computation of the particles assigned by the thread. This is a more detailed view of the parallelization of the outer cycle, and here is where we can use uh, the outputs of Admire project in order to improve the overall performance of this use case. First of all, basically for each outer cycle item, basically supposing we have ocean state, one ocean state for each hour, let's say for each simulated hour, we can change the number of processes, of MPI processes, without any loss of consistency, because basically we restart the simulation each hour. By design, Wacom++ uses a kind of checkpoint for each ocean state time. And currently, the input output is blocking, and especially the writing of the concentration output is blocking. Basically, we have to wait that the output is completely written for the system before starting the new computation, and we plan to decouple this and overlap the writing of the concentration file with the computation of the next outer cycle item. We tested the Wacom++ on Purple Jeans. Purple Jeans is one of the two clusters we have here at the Department of Science and Technology. Purple Jeans is the cluster dedicated to research. It's not for production. Actually, the production are the research output. And to test Wacom, we used the GPU provided computing nodes, and we tested Wacom performing a simulation of a 24-hour with 25 millions of particles, all emitted in the first hour. Basically, we have only one emission source in the Bay of Naples, and the way emits all the 25 millions of particles at the same time. Our baseline is one process, one thread, and no one GPU in full sequential mode. And those are some results. The scalability is impressive, but this is easy to achieve because the Lagrangian equations that if we don't have interaction between particles, this kind of problem is highly scalable. If we consider the baseline and a test using MPI and OpenMPI without GPU, we have that the results are 86 times better than the baseline. While if we move to GPUs, the results are impressive because we compute 25 millions of particles in 0.0086 seconds. The question is, but the numbers are okay, the performance are great, the code is open source, and the code has been designed in order to be improved with the Flex MPI. We start studying Flex MPI next week. We will have the meeting to finalize the uh, our design of implementation of the Flex MPI version of Wagon++. But the question is, this is wonderful, but is working, actually working? What happens in the real world? And actually, we was lucky because we had some actual data collected by an instrument, an oceanographic instrument called Drifter. You can see in the box here. It's basically a floater with a underwater sail, and this floater has a really low profile on the sea surface. In this way, the floater is not influenced by the wind, but only by the surface current. And this floater was released in during uh, the sampling campaign of another project, a completely independent project, but we have data about this floater, and well, we run the simulation of exactly in the same exactly situation, basically same date with the same current in the same place, and as you can see in the four pictures, the different in the blue line is the true, and the red lines are the distribution of the particles released for the text. And as you can see, the match is quite good. Just remembering that each grid cell is far away from the next one as 160 meters. Basically, we missed just 160 meters south the exactly position of the floater. Considering that these are really coastal area, these are impressive results, and this the details about this research, this test are described in the paper Modeling Passive Tracers in the Marine Environment with a high performance heterogeneous and hierarchical computing. This is in press, so we are waiting for the final release. And I think this was a really important achievement for the Admire project, because in this way we can state that everything we can do with malleability and input-output improvement in this environmental application are consistent even from the geophysical point of view. So, in conclusions, we have to implement the malleability with using Flex MPI. Actually, even before, as I told, we are already studying Flex MPI, and now we are using OpenMPI, and we will test in the next days the Wagon++ using MPI GAs, because this is needed by Flex MPI, and the malleability have to be applied to the outer side, because it will be pretty easy, because the model has been designed for this, not because we was lucky. Uh, and we want to make blocking the input output. If you are curious to test Wagon Plus Plus on Purple Jeans, we prepared an demo on the available on the repository. And if you want to have access to purple jeans, just send me your preferred username and your public SSH, and you can follow the guide. That's all.
Okay, Raffaele, thank you very much.
Welcome.
I don't know if there are some questions for Raffaele. Some questions? No questions? Hello?
I don't see any.
Okay, Raffaele, I have one question, but probably is very, in case we want to use, for example, this ad hoc file system we have, what would be for the distribution? Could we use it to connect the workflows?
Yes, we can try to do that. Especially for because to connect the different parts of the workflows, we use the file system, and of course they are looking at the big picture. I will be back on the slide related to the big picture. Yes, ma'am. Basically, each time we have to couple one model with another one, we have to write a consistent amount of data. Because as I show you in the other slides, we usually for each hour of simulation, it depends by the model, but usually each hour of simulation are a few gigabytes of data, and we produce 168 hour of simulation per application, full application run. That means per model. And so having a ad hoc file system could improve this part of the application, the big picture, the overall application, and even each part of each components of the application, because we have two scenarios here. In the community models as WRF, WW3, WWatch3, and ROMs, actually our community models are open source, but the last thing we have to do is modify the source code, because are huge projects maintained by people really focused on the operational issues. So we have not to touch the source code, but we can improve the performance acting on, for example, on ad hoc file system using POSIX interfaces. While in the Wacom++, we can have the full control of the source code, and we can use both ad hoc file system solution and some more specific. In some of the first WP7 meetings, we show how, for example, the overall performance are improved just using instead of the regular file system Gluster FS created as a collection of bricks mapped in RAM as RAM drive, and just doing that, and we had a consistent improvement of performance.
Thank you, Raffaele.
You're welcome.
So, if there are no more questions, with this,
I see. Sorry, Jesus, I see that there is a question from Nafis. I think he can unmute himself and make the question. Now there is, I don't know if he cannot unmute himself. Now I see there is a mod. maybe you can try.
Matt, try to use the.
He actually wrote in the chat that this question got answered. Now to my question. How much I/O data is actually generated? This would be the first part. And for the second part, you said that you are working on an asynchronous version. Is it going to use asynchronous MPI I/O? And do you have actually a prototype?
No, actually, we don't have right now a prototype using asynchronous computation and I/O. We will have in the next, I suppose, weeks. Actually, the first in our development priority, the first one will be trying to implement the Flex MPI approach for changing the involved resources on the fly, basically the computer nodes on the fly, and this will be our priority in next week, and then I suppose in the next 3 weeks. Once we have Wacom++ working also on using Flex MPI. If you give a look to the how the source code is organized, we made a source code really configurable, so you can choose the kind of libraries and the kind of features, parallel features to enable. Basically, we have the same source code that is used in different configuration. We would like to use. We don't know how to do that. I mean, we have to study more, but we want to use exactly the same approach even for Flex MPI. And I repeat, the priority in the next couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, will be using Flex MPI. I really would like to have a demo version for the first days of June. Then we will focus on the I/O. We already performed, as I told, we already performed some tests, and we found the writing of the concentration output here is highly impacting the overall performance, because if we measure as we usually do in for performance evaluation, just the time used by the inner cycle, and we don't consider the I/O, we have a really impressive results. But if we consider even the I/O, especially with the if we consider the even the I/O, the impact of writing the concentration file is huge. Of course, it depends by the file system. It depends by the kind of shared file system among nodes and whatever. But we can work on it, and when we already tested some simple simple solutions can improve. And here is where we want to, first of all, desynchronize the output, basically overlap the output with the computation, and we can use for example, the MPI input-output libraries we have to test, or we could improve, and then we would like to use some admire contributions in the ad hoc file system or similar solutions to improve more the the overall performance. Basically, the idea is having the idea underlying the development, the design, development of Wacom++ is having something of really configurable related to the actual resource that who is running Wacom++ has, because this kind of model operationally can used even by not really well equipped institutions to deal, track, and manage pollution accidentally spills. For example, oil spills or something like this. And so the idea is using something that could be really high performance and really configurable.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Rafaele.
You're welcome.
So I think there are no more questions. We can finish the presentation. It has been very nice and very clarifying. And remember that the links for the recording will be available at the web page. Okay. So thank you again to Barbara for organizing everything. And I think we can finish the presentation. Thank you.